Great, let's go. Right. Onegaishimasu. Right, let's just loosen up a little bit. Yeah, great. We'll take a little bit front and back. Ooh, great, and to side to side. Into rotation. Great. I'm working inside outside. Nice wave through the spine. Great, keep the same feeling, just opening out now, breathing up, stretching the arms up, and then curling the spine all the way down, all the way up. Just let the breath kind of lead the movement in this one. Breathing up, breathing out, you come down. Curling up, all the way up. Great. Okay, perfect. We'll just go a little bit for the ankles, mobilizing them. Great, changing this side. just working the inside and outside. So just doing the inside both one side, outside on the other. Great, pressing the big toe down, raising the other foot, and then sinking the other 4 toes, raising the big toe up. You take it into the knees. Just tight circles. Working both ways. Stepping out a bit wider. Roll and then outside in. And going inside to outside. Great, and bend and straighten the knees. Right. You just placing weight down one side, raise it up through the hip. Yeah, good. Great, changing the leg. Right, switching back and rolling the hip out. The knee. Changing the side. Great, and taking into the hips, big circles. Work in both directions. Great, twisting out the elbows. Rolling out the shoulders. Forwards. Great, with the arms out straight. Slides. And just doing it with the elbows, so just kind of pressing the elbow back. Great, and then nice and big, working the diagonals. Stretching them out, and then just play with mobilizing them from the shoulder, either side, either way. That's it. Good. Oh, rolling from the elbows. Right, rolling the wrists a little bit. Right, making fists nice and tight. And open up. Nice, spreading the fingers like that. Rolling them out, spreading them out at the top of the rotation. Great, and I'll just take it a little bit to the head, just nice and slow. Reaching up and down. Left and right. Great, and take a knee to the shoulder. Great, and working nice big rotation, really slow. Nice and big, slow as you can, especially over the back. And when we get to the front, go around the other way. Okay, so just shake out the wrists a little bit. Up and down. A little bit side to side. Taking it down, rolling the arms. And shake out the legs. Great. Planting the feet and shaking it all back. Great. But we'll take it into the swing. So you just want the feet kind of hip width, raising them up, sinking the arms down. Nice and dynamic. Really focusing on raising up the vertebrae, sinking into the floor. Good. Okay, just switch this so that you're only working one side at a time, so the whole body's involved, but you're just kind of concerned with raising one arm and the effect that it has up that side of the leg, up that leg as well as the side of the body, and then dropping it down. So you got a slightly asymmetrical movement. Let the other hand, you can either place it on the center, you can place it at the back, you can just have it at the side. But just focus on that connection from one side of the body, one side of the ground, through the leg, up through the hand, sinking it down. You still want a nice balance movement through the spine. Very nice neutral, extended spine. Just focus on that connection, so really connecting the left foot, left hip, left arm, or right foot, right hip, right arm. Yeah. Good. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Right. Yeah, one thing that also might help with this, so if you also find yourself sometimes kind of going a little bit forward like this, if you imagine like you've got a coil or a spring between the legs, think as you go down to this movement, think that you're pressing it together without the knees going in, that you're not kind of crushing it, but you're squeezing it. So you want the back of the legs to kind of activate in it. So think about this as you go down. Now think about, you can either kind of land the hand down, like you're kind of landing weight in it, boom, like you're gonna, like either a strike with the sword, or you can also take this kind of like a tiny ankle position, this kind of feeling. But keep that sense of now impacting into the ground. And this little bit of sense you really want the back of the body to activate. But just work again one side, raise it up, drain it down, raise it up, drain it down. Really trying to avoid like a lopsided movement going one way, and also the body being thrown out the structure. Just let the hips sink in, let the hand follow. Sink in, let the hand follow. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Great. Yeah. Yeah, because we spend a lot of time in Hanmi, it's natural for us to start to rotate into it, like one-sided. So really keep, in this case, with the feet flat, the hips square, the arm just flows down. So think about now the connection with the shoulder to the hip. So this kind of forms a line through the body, which is the same as, if you think about it, it's the same when you go into Hanmi, that same orientation. But the tendency as we go into it, because we're used to kind of twisting in the body this way, tendency is to throw it out. So just let the hip guide the movement in this case. But try and avoid the hand being kind of thrown out. Every so often just play with bringing both hands into it. You got one side, both. That's it. Yeah, good. That's it. Nice. Great. So just use the other hand now, just as feedback. You're just going to land the hand into it. So you're going to work now a little bit more on the center line, like as if you were doing a strike into it. You can use any part of the hand. It's not really important. It's just the feeling of striking through it. So you're just going to use it as kind of ledge for the hand as you do it. But keep this kind of big roots. You got to raise. You don't need to hit it so hard, but you don't need to hit it hard at all. But you want the feeling again. You've got that same dynamic, dropping the hips into the ground, compressing in, keeping the spine neutral, but also extended up. You just want now the sense of a little bit of an impact in. You want to go like 5 centimeters down. Doesn't have to be much. So you're not looking to kind of press it down, just looking to impact into it. Impact into it. In. Good. And just play with different parts of the hand as well. You can make like a hammer fist with the back of the hand. Use like a 𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒕𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂
Yeah, in a way, there's kind of three things I can do with this. You can think about the hand being kind of solid. Again, I'm kind of hitting it and it bounces out of it. And then I've got to kind of hold the recoil. The other one is then I'm kind of just placing it into it, which is fine. This one's actually okay. The one you want to work on is the sense you're actually impacting through it. So think that the hand's going to absorb it into it. And in the same sense, just have that sense that you're draining through the hand. Like imagine you're hammering in there, that sense of you want to hit it, you want to make contact, you also want to drive it down. Drive it down. Drive it down. That's it. Yeah, good. Good. That's it. Good. Right, good. Okay, good. We'll just take this into this kind of rotating movement, this one, and keep that same feeling. You're going to let the hand just make contact with the body. Keep that same sense with this hand. You're not striking out now, you're striking into the body. So yeah, keep that sense of slightly impacting into the body. Not too hard. Just enough so you've got a little bit of feedback in the body. So again, think about just doing one hand at a time, and it gets the same connection. Left foot, left hand, left foot, left hip, left arm. Right foot, right hip, right hand. Right, left, left. So it's the same dynamic again. You just add more network rotation into the hip. Bring it into the body. So you just want to like a double kind of thud. Boom. Not like a slap. Like a boom. 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 That's good. Yeah, and again, just try and imagine the sense of this coil between the legs or a spring, like you're trying to compress it, not only down into the ground, but also inside the body. So you're trying to close the body out this way. So you want that also is going to stabilize the hip as well. So you want at the point of where you would make contact with it, if you imagine someone in front of you, boom, boom, this way, with a kind of slapping movement, you want to have stability in the hip as you do it. But I don't want the hip to be throwing out in this way. It's useful, but I'm unstable in terms of going into another movement. So think about as you go down, stabilizing into the ground. between without locking the hip up. So this is the tricky area, looking for stability in the body, but also feeling like you're immediately able to mobilize. Yeah. So good. Yeah, now you must be working like in a sense like a 𝒂𝒂𝒿 work. So think about now the impact you want to take that percussion into the next one. So what you want to feel now is the sense as it goes across the body. I'm still maintaining the ground here and then just shifting it into the next one. So think about now, as soon as you got that impact, you're thinking about the next one. So just play with this one a little bit because you just want to start to get the feeling that you can take the motion to the next one. And it's really critical now that the hips have stability, because if they don't, the body just starts to really rock out all the time. Then you're really unstable. There's no sense of weight to it. So think of going a little bit faster, but try and keep that sense of weight in the body. So, and play now with where the arm goes. So now we're kind of going to the shoulder, but just give the arm a little bit of freedom. You can just explore different movements. Good. So. Nice. There we go. Very good. Right, and then play with now, rather than, you're going to kind of mix these two exercises up. So this one are kind of striking down into the hand. You can use the hand if you want, but you can just kind of strike out with it. And this sense of now initiating the hip into it. So it's that same movement now that you have just kind of simple down. Dum, dum, dum. Now you've got a sense of striking out with it, which you can take into like a 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒿. You can take into a strike out, any kind of strike, any angle. Feel like the easiest one is this kind of slapping movement, but again, keep the sense of the alignment with the structure and bringing the hip into. Yeah, it's probably easier to work one side at a time, but once you get a handle on it, feel that both the hands are kind of free. And don't think too much about striking, although this is going to striking. Think just about passing the movement out of the hand. So we actually start like the arms very limp, quite loose. And you're looking again to maintain the weight in the body through the structure as you kind of cast the arm out. That's it. Good. Very good try. Yeah. And every so often just use the hand as well, so you've got a kind of feedback for it. So you're not just kind of loosely striking out, but you've got this little bit of feedback for it. And you can use any part of the arm as well. Think about the elbows, passing out into the hand, the fist. That's it. Yeah, good. Good. And again, try and imagine in this case, you want the hips to be free. So the hips should be flexible. But at the same time, in this stance, this is a good stance to think about this. Think about the waist, this whole area of the body, and there's where the center basically is. Think of this basically impacting into the ground. So although the hips are free, the center is basically going to boom, stabilize the movement, or the waist is going to stabilize. You don't want the problem we've got in terms of hammy and going into sword cuts is the waist can tend to start to kind of displace in the body. But think about the waist basically entering down, the hips stay flexible through it. So as you do this in, just play with a little bit, not quite into hammy, but taking one of the feet forward. But again, imagine that the waist is basically going to center into the body all the time. So it's going to land down as you find the strike, whatever it is. Think of the waist coming out. But as soon as I start to feel the waist start to be thrown out, that's when I know I'm starting to kind of lose the structure a little bit. So just play with hips mobile, hand light, but the center heavy, dropping down. This is why Shomenushi is such a good movement, because it's working the dynamic down, which is where the center wants to kind of place in. And all these other ones which are striking it out, they're a bit more of a challenge for the body to maintain the center. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Great, very good. That's it. That's it. Right. Okay, then just add one more element to it, which is about moving the body in the space. So you're adjusting now the hips, going into probably into hammy, so you probably feel kind of naturally you fall into. But think now about shifting the body. So don't think first about stepping, but just think about kind of shifting. So it's like if you think about the Joe work, this kind of shuffle that we do, it's kind of a nice one to go into. If you think about the first degree, sense of shifting the body. But first, not yet going into kind of stepping, which is a little bit more tricky in terms of, again, finding the structure, letting it hit the ground. Out. And it can be a strike, can be a 𝒊𝒂𝒏, can be a 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏, anything you like with it. I really think now you're going like point A, point B, but you're not taking the structure out of the ground. You're kind of taking everything with you, maintaining that alignment through the structure. And always working with the ground. Right, good. Nice. Okay, good. Yeah, and we'll take this into the show, which is the obvious kind of one to go for with this. So what you want to think now is you're going from a really neutral position, not passive, but just kind of neutral with the body. And then you want to draw the whole body into the movement, straight into the strike. So everything's got a neutral, neutral, neutral. And then again, it's about kind of passing this structure into the movement. I just think you're pressing right out the take a hand, the blade of the hand goes straight up into the face of the person. Yeah, working right through the center. That's it. Good. Good. Okay, great. So what you want to do in this one is play with making the movement casual from the beginning. So you want to not only not give signals for the movement, but you want the movement to come kind of directly out of the ground. What I don't want to do in this case is preload the movement and then come into it, which again is not in a way, it's like cheating in a way, and kind of loading up and then doing it. But it also put me in the wrong, it will put me in the wrong mindset for it as well. So if you think about in terms of self-defense contact, I've not been in many fights, but one fight I was in once, I was with a guy who was trained Taekwondo. And as the guy came up to attack, he did the worst thing you can do. He took a stance like this. And the attacker said, "Oh, Taekwondo." And then he knew it was a game, right? So he started, the fight was went like this. But stupid idea. So what you want to think is really neutral. Again, not passive where you're kind of holding back, but just engage the body forward. And then really play with now the feeling that the strike comes out of nowhere. So you want to have as little signal as possible, so the movement's quiet, but again with that sense of impact, which isn't easy. But just have that sense. Imagine the sword work. So you've got that same feeling. You've got a kind of neutral aspect, a neutral 𝒂𝒑𝒏, and then you're firing into the movement. So you don't want to give any kind of sign. I'm going to prepare and then I'm going to do it. So you'll just change the encounter. So in this case, just try and be neutral but engaged, and then into the movement. So. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, and the main thing for this is don't think that you're striking with the hand, but you're striking with the whole body. So Sensei had this thing of he said something I was reading yesterday about that I don't use the sword, but I am the sword, basically. So he was saying the whole body's the weapon. Now, also because we're not karate trained, like Catherine, we're not making weapons of the different parts of the body usually. So when a lot of us aren't doing training where we're going to make the fist into a weapon or the elbows into a weapon, although they are. So you want to have more of the feeling that the whole body's making the attack. So really feel that you're actually attacking with again, it's kind of this is where the waist is really important, because that's the center of the whole body. This is where the weight's going to kind of come from. So again, holding the ground, using the whole body, working from a neutral position. But try and avoid this, even a kind of feeling that I'm kind of striking out with the hand. It starts to pull me into this idea that I'm going to put a lot of emphasis onto the actual attacking part, which is important, but not more important than the feeling of actually attacking him with the whole body. So just have that sense as you do it. Imagine you're pushing a car or something. You don't push with the hands. You push the whole body through the ground. Everything's involved in it. The same with these attacks. Yes. Okay, perfect. Grab a bokken. So.
Unfortunately, I have to leave. Thank
Okay,
you.
Nina,
Have a
great.
good day. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Okay, good. So again, we're doing a little bit backwards in terms of the structure. We usually train the weapon first and then train the empty-handed. But again, it's useful to train the body first and then also train the weapon. So you've got a little bit of more of a purchase on what we're doing with the weapon as well. So we'll just start nice and clearly, just with the first saburi, but really focus here on coming into the kamae. So don't do the first saburi like repetition. Go into kamae, find the back, drop into the ka, and then drop back into the kamae. So work really on the sense of a nice and neutral kamae. Feel nice and comfortable. Again, the hips should feel free. The center and the waist should feel like they're impacting into the ground, but you want the hips, the limbs to stay free with it. So drop into it, drop back into the kamae. So. We'll just spend a little bit of time here. Just work with one hand. So in this case, you're just going to work with the right arm. So you're just going to raise it up. Do this nice and slow. So you're not going to do the same kind of speed. And also you don't want that same kind of sense of percussion out. So just have the sense of rolling through the movement, finding the arc in the movement. Yeah, just focusing on one side of the body. You want that same sense of control with the weapon. So rolling up to the top, sinking down. So. Yeah, also play with this on the left side, but again, just the grip, so it's like you just kind of switch everything over, so the left hand takes where the right would take normally. Again, just drawing it up to the top, sinking in the hip, sinking in the hip. That's it. And just really emphasizing one side of the connection, so one foot, one hip, one hand, or one arm at a time. Okay, perfect. And then just take it into the attack form. So we want to now again go back to both hands, but you're just now coming forward with the strike. So you find the kamae, nice and neutral. Keep that same sense you do with the shomanuchi, empty-handed. And then you press it with it, land the hips down. And again, resetting every time. Really find the kamae. Initiate the movement straight in. Sit. So just play with this in terms of the basic form, and then this form, which is a kind of kinagari form or an attack form. But think about nothing really changed in terms of the structure. So if you go to the raise in the basic, you've got this sense of compressing down, raising up here, pressing down with the hip this way. So it's that same sense as you go into this one. You're going to compress down to the hip for the raise, come out. The problem or the issue with this one again is a movement of the hips and the waist to kind of accommodate the movement. So think about now, but keep that sense mix between now the basic and the attack forward form, but that same structure, pressing back, sinking the hips in, but in this case pressing down, sinking the hips in to the front. So mix between those two. That. Yes. Yeah, okay. If you go to this idea of signaling, another way you can look at it is like behavior or body language. You're looking for changes in the body. So changes in the structure or changes in the feeling of the person, which comes usually with changes into the structure as well. But look now in your own, set into your own self, what changes are made just before the attack. So usually, I know for me especially, it can be really subtle, like the eyes start to close, you start to arch down the neck a little bit, so and then you go into it. But just look at it, see if you can go without making, it's not that you make no changes, but that you go straight into the change. So there's no kind of, and then go. You want to go like, straight into it. So I always think about my electric bike, or think about your electric car or whatever, anything electric. You want to go into quick mobility. You want to go straight to mobility. But just notice if you get a sense, might be in the grip, something might change, might be in the feet. It can be anywhere. Just look to go from really like a nothing into something. That's it, John. Nice. Right, we'll just finish a nice simple combination. So using the attack form or the basic if you want, but starting first with the shunmukshi, so you've got forward in, and then from here we're going to go up, pressing up to the top, and then changing the hips, striking into where you're coming this way. A nice 3 set, nice and simple. So you've got shunmukshi, coming up to the top, and then changing the hips, striking on the left side. Just first go to a nice clean basic, so you're really going again, stillness into motion with as little signaling as possible. Okay, good. Last few, just do this nice and slow, but just study now a little bit more flexibility in the footwork. So really think about where you're compressing out from the strike. So you've got the back foot here, front foot into the yokomen. So generally, if you're kind of shuffling the body, you're going to come from the back. If you're stepping, obviously you're changing onto the leg where you've stepped from. So just think about all the time kind of moving the body from the back and ground, back, ground, back, and the ground, back, and the ground as you do it. Just start to, once you've got it, start to feel that you can take the body straight into the next movement. Good. Yeah, I was watching one last point. I was watching one video about sensei's weapons, especially sword work, and they said that the form itself was actually very similar to kind of kendo, like modern, not quite modern kendo, but kendo as it was in that time. Which is the main thing with kendo in that sense is like a swatting motion. So it's like this kind of movement. They said the main difference with those senses is the form looks similar. He was doing full cuts. Each one was a full cut. So each one was complete and then coming into it. They had that same kind of speed in terms of body work. So the main thing when you're doing these kind of Ki-Nagai forms especially is not to get into, I'm kind of swatting with the sword, but you want a sense of a full impact on each one, which is tricky in terms of finding the compression and completing it as you do it. But just the last 30 seconds or so, just play with the sense of a full impact through it, but also kind of riding off the impact as well, which is really tricky. Easier with the kind of kendo method because I'm just kind of swatting the sword, but I want a sense that I'm fully percussing into the ground, impacting the ground each time. But that ability to like percuss, release, is really, that's where the Ki-Nagai is kind of tricky. That's where the main issue is in terms of movement. Yeah. Good. Nice, brilliant. Good. Yeah. Nice. There we go. Great. Wow. Great. Alrighty, perfect. So we'll kind of keep working on this because it's kind of really interesting kind of topic, and also how it relates to the attending in the body, which is also really nice to work with. Okay, we will. Great. Domo arigato gozaimasu. Great. Very good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yo.